I would like to start off by saying,
this game is completely and utterly absurd.
What have you done? You make me part of you! You can't do this to me!
Please, just go!
the Poppy Playtime Company is a clandestine black site conducting highly unethical experiments and research, and thus must be expunged from the Earth as soon as possible. Poppy Playtime is not just a greedy and unethical toy company. I believe Poppy Playtime is in fact a government-funded biochemical weapons facility. Today, dear viewer, I aim to try and prove it. I'm Agent Paris of the FBI, the Department of Fictitious Bullshit Inspectors. We specialize in investigating paranormal instances instigated, summoned, or created by government conspiracies, organizations, government bodies, or any other collective body of bad actors. We have been building a case against the Poppy Playtime Company for some time. It is true that many evil organizations across the hyperbolic universe of fiction and imagination are too stupid, too unlawful, and too bloody unsafe to exist. In regards to Poppy, it's the mad mascot game that keeps on giving. More content for the game has come out, and boy, it's a doozy. We all think we know the wholesome, family-friendly children's toy company, or do we? We are all familiar with the latest mascot horror franchise that is causing controversies. The fans debate the quality of the games and dissect the lore more than an avid FNAF detective. I previously talked about how stupid the company was and questioned many of its decisions. It would seem like it's set up to fail. While it's all well and good looking at the big picture of the Poppy Playtime story, it got me thinking, what's it like for the average Joe Schmo employee in the 80s or the 90s working at this nightmare fuel factory? At times, Poppy Playtime seems less like a toy factory and more like a biomedical and chemical weapons research black site. Like, honestly, the level of obfuscation, cover-ups, illegal experiments, it does not feel like Playmates Toys, the real-life toy company it's based on. No, honestly, it feels more like a modern-day American government-funded weapons research facility. That's because it likely is. It terminates employees that develop a conscience or ask too many questions. In my previous video, I talked at length about the Bigger Bodies initiative. It's the mad scientist wet stream in question that really is the culprit behind the horror of this game. I'm not talking about the chimera-like creatures they're building in the basement either. I'm talking about the gross health and safety violations along with the casual disregard for federal law or common decency. I started off this investigation by looking up real-world human trafficking and organ trafficking data and information. Then Chapter 5 came out. Fuck. Poppy Playtime has more going on than a toy company. It's an elaborate front for a child organ removal trafficking ring. The sickos at Poppy Playtime have gone there, so they are forcing me to wade through their slimy corporate greed. Before we attack the fictitious bullshit company itself, we need to lay down some legalese. Let's start with a definition for what a black site is. In military terminology, a black site is a location at which an unacknowledged black project is conducted. A black project is a classified military and/or defense project, unacknowledged publicly by the government, military personnel, and defense contractors. Familiar examples of US military aircraft developed as black projects are the F-117 stealth fighter and B-2 stealth bomber, which were highly classified. Their existence was denied until the government was ready to have these toys announced to the public. Recently, the term black site has gained notoriety in describing secret prisons operated by the United States, CIA, and other jurisdictions, such as toy companies in Michigan. Now, I'm not saying Poppy Playtime is affiliated with the CIA or the US government, but the game is set in Michigan, and this subterranean toy factory has some pretty impressive resources to conduct, such as inconspicuous cyclopean surgeries. No normal toy company has those kinds of resources. Something is up. Before we go further, let's discuss the meaning of two other terms, organ trafficking and human trafficking. Or to use a more specific phrase, trafficking in persons for the purpose of organ removal. An excerpt from the US State Department. Trafficking in persons for the purpose of organ removal is one of the least reported and least understood forms of trafficking, but one that experts believe may be growing. Like sex trafficking and labor trafficking, it is ultimately a crime that exploits human beings for economic profit. Trafficking in persons for the purpose of organ removal is a form of trafficking in which an individual is exploited for their organ, including by coercion, deception, and abuse of a position of vulnerability. The crime is sometimes confused with organ trafficking. However, organ trafficking refers more broadly to the illicit trade or exchange of organs for financial or other material gain. In organ trafficking, the focus is on the organ itself. Conversely, with trafficking in persons for the purpose of organ removal, the focus is on the individual. Cheery reading! Now, for the meat and potatoes. Agent Paris, why are you giving us all these boring legal definitions when I wanted to watch a video about medical torture and Frankenstein-esque monsters? It's all connected to the Bigger Bodies Initiative, and frankly, I want to use this language to describe their actions in a real-world framework. What is it exactly that the Bigger Bodies Initiative consists of? Effectively, it's transplanting the central nervous system of a human being, often a child, into the synthetically created body of exotic and genetically engineered organisms. The medical science is deliberately vague. It has to be. The properties of the poppy flower in this universe are basically magic and can revive and reanimate dead things. Reanimating things, it seems, is the whole point. Those idiots are trying to concoct immortality.
You are stupid. You are stupid. And don't forget, you are stupid.
More on that later. Meanwhile, the actual latex from poppy flowers IRL tends to kill pain, make people high, and fall asleep. It also comes with habit-forming tendencies. I digress. As of Chapter 5, they have what I like to call educational visual aids. I will show them now. They take the body parts of a human subject, put them in a fabricated amalgamation of whatever giant toy they want to make, and slap poppy gel and what otherwise would be a corpse, and voila! You have a semi-intelligent cannibalistic being that hates its existence. So, Poppy Playtime Co, following the Bigger Bodies Initiative, was trafficking in children with the purpose of removing their organs and then transplanting them onto a construct. It's not say what is done with leftover material, as it were. I suspect it was sold for profit, given how much damn money this project cost. How were they able to keep something like this a secret for so long? How on earth did they fund it? It cost millions of pounds in old-timey 2000s money to create Dolly the Sheep. Poppy Playtime Co is pulling off some Jurassic Park Unit 371 type shit, and frankly that would cost a whole lot more. I find it hard to believe that a 1990s toy company can not only acquire the test subjects, research staff, equipment, a black test facility, and keep it under wraps, but somehow fund all this crap and somehow run a milquetoast toy company. Unless they are getting backing by the US government. Small list of their crimes and health and safety violations include, but are not limited to, human trafficking, trafficking in persons for the purpose of organ removal, gross statutory negligence, zoning status fraud, solicitation of murder, mishandling of human remains, improper disposal of industrial waste, developing chemical and biological weapons, hazardous machines, including an incineration and cutting device that I'm convinced is not up to code. And the utter breaking of all Nuremberg codes. I can go on, but you get the point. Either these folks were super discreet or they had help. I choose to believe the latter. Think about it. They have developed also this psychomimetic agent in the form of catnip-scented gas. It induces sleep and nightmares. They are also cooking up chimera-like creatures that can take orders and straight up murder people. These alone definitely have military applications, or worse. The good doctor was claiming to do all this in the name of cheap labor. Surely it would just be cheaper to just get the children to work as they are.
Fuck them kids.
Fuck the kids? You already have the creepy underground facility with no oversight. Their main goal, however, is to create true human immortality. Any government would be willing to throw all the money and all the resources, as it were, if there was any likelihood that this could actually succeed. A powerful and wealthy organization, such as the US government, can make legal cases disappear, delete inconvenient records, and fund black site medical laboratories. I honestly don't think a 1990s toy company can fund this type of research and keep it a secret on its own. However, an unscrupulous government agency looking for something with a wholesome front to cover their nefarious schemes, that could work. May I remind you, the US paid for US soldiers to stare at goats in the Stargate program in an attempt to get ahead in psychonaut warfare. That is a bit of a exaggeration joke. However, if the Poppy Playtime Co was real and was making 10-foot tall monsters made from the spinal columns of children, you'd bet your ass they would invest, not investigate. Yes, I mentioned that the US has invested in other allegedly ludicrous projects such as Project Stargate. So there is a precedent. Project Stargate was a multi-million-dollar program launched by the CIA at the height of the Cold War to try and get ahead of the Soviet Union. Powers of the mind. It was the result of rumors about the Soviets that were swirling around in the 1970s. The CIA believed the USSR was spending 60 million rubles annually on extrasensory perception and mind-reading projects to aid in its espionage efforts. It's uncertain if the Soviet Union was actually working on extrasensory perception projects. What is clear, however, is that the CIA believed that the country was and moved to create an American version of it. Project Stargate explored reading other people's thoughts, telepathy, predicting the future, and the ability to view place or time remotely without actually being there. They closed down the program in 1995, and the jury's out on whether or not they actually found anything. Lol. Also, the mother-flipping Tuskegee experiments. Oh my god. So basically, the United States Public Health Service rounded up 399 African-American men with syphilis, just to watch the disease take its course. They did not tell them the diagnosis or the true nature of the study. They did not offer them truly effective treatment, even when it became definitive medical knowledge that penicillin was a cure. You see, there was this racist theory going on that syphilis affected the central nervous system of white small and negatively impacted the cardiovascular system of the black small. They thought black people were dumber and had different brains, or some other blonde socialist BS, so they wanted to test their theory. This ran from 1932 to 1972. Well within living memory, my dad was 12 in 72. Those unethical and well-educated white folk traipsed down to a poor black town in Alabama. They deceived these black men, telling them that they were here to cure bad blood. Bad blood was a colloquial name then used for a host of conditions, including venereal diseases. These unwitting men would lord in with promises of free healthcare, hot meals, burial insurance, and regularly return for aspirins, tonics, blood draws, and the occasional spinal tap. But none of these treatments cure syphilis, and 128 of the men ultimately died of the disease or complications related to it. In addition, they passed the disease to their wives and children. It was truly ghoulish what was done to these communities. I'm going to cover the gritty details in another video, but eventually they got shot down, and the government was forced to pay out money to the victims and their families. They only got found out because of an outside whistleblower. This would have continued otherwise. It would appear that the staff did not feel guilty until court. This was a dumb project that cost the American taxpayer unthinkable amounts of money. The American government is totally stupid and arrogant enough to fund something as carnivalesque and destructive as the Bigger Bodies Initiative as a consequence, I think. If the frickin' glove fits. Remember the catnip gas fiasco? Felony. Chemical Weapons Convention Implementation Act of 1998. This was on the news in the world. For all intents and purposes, they got off light. They recalled their toys, but it didn't end the company like it fucking should have. I can't ever find any mention of lawsuits issued by the parents. The FDA and a number of government agencies would have certainly shut them down, giving children a sedative gas that induces nightmares. Come on, this is clearly a government cover-up. Which brings us back to organ removal trafficking. Now, typically in traditional organ removal trafficking, they're after kidneys, livers, corneas, and skin. In the company video, it would appear they casually use any body parts they fancy. I assume they must use the brain and the central nervous system. Again, it's not clear. These test subjects are trafficked in under the guise of being cared for at an orphanage, when in reality they're being housed in a detention center to be later experimented on. Outside the hyperbolic horror of the game, it's really rooted in some elements of realistic horror. The orphans are subjected to medical torture without their consent, analogous to the crimes committed by the medical staff working for the blonde socialist and Imperial Japan. When going through the documents and videos researching this case, I was shocked how much some of the cruelty in the game reminded me of the sociopathic doctors of World War II Axis powers. Ostensibly, these doctors too were conducting clandestine, unethical experiments in the name of progress. In the end, many of these experiments were pointless, needlessly cruel, and conducted with a cold and calculating curiosity. When you hear some of the researchers speak in the game, some of them could easily be at home at certain detention camps that could be found in Poland around 84 years ago. Take, for example, our good friend Jessica Newman. Roll the tape!
I know it's important, Newman, but you can't deny the cost is, well, there is a cost.
You just can't dwell on it. The trick is to stay focused. Besides, if Grace's treatment plan here works, 1188 won't be feral for long.
Fuck them kids.
Fuck the kids?
Yeah.
Which brings us to Miss Gracie, wellness and integration counselor. She is a rotten piece of work whose bag is brainwashing, mental conditioning, and psychologically manipulating children and accepting their new existence as hulking toy homunculi. You know who's also psychologically torturing unwitting innocents?
How far would the US government go to get what they want? As we learned from MKUltra, a lot further than we'd like.
The USA. The CIA. That is another huge rabbit hole to be buried into another time. To be succinct, the CIA was trying to develop procedures and identify drugs that could be used in altering human behavior. Once again, unethical shit, mad scientists abusing their power, wasting money, no accountability appears to be the shady US Gov MO. Just like in the real world, you would find the same indifference, that same terrifying belief that what they're doing is right. That's what makes this game really scary to me. These are meant to be intelligent individuals, many of whom are doctors, definitely not abiding by the Hippocratic Oath. The human indifference to human suffering in the name of science, on behalf of a shadow organization for profit, apparently, is patriotic even if you do it in the name of your government, your nation. They're not complicit, they're just following orders. I've been to Toys R Us. I've also been to the US Embassy in London. It's night and day. Toy companies just don't have the same resources the government does. Full stop. To hire the staff, to detain and acquire children, to maintain the secrecy of the site, the experiments, the equipment would cost hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more. Making one of these toy Frankensteins alone would cost a small fortune, yet the facility is filled to the brim with them, implying they made hundreds if not thousands of them. How much did each surgery cost? How did they maintain these beings? Feeding them, cleaning them, medical care, removing their waste, all of this cost money. Zoos aren't cheap, you know. Unlike zoos, some of the animals have bloody escaped. They've had giant toys escape and kill people. Clearly a cover-up. They somehow survived a company-ending scandal of accidentally releasing a chemical weapon to the public. Furthermore, the player is able to waltz into the lobby in Chapter 1. If this place has been shut down for years, why hasn't it been properly condemned? Why hasn't some form of authority swooped in and jacked up the place? There was a little massacre here. Scores of people died. A whole orphanage of children just gone. Aren't, like, the families and loved ones of the staff and researchers, like, curious? WTF happened to their dudes? Does anybody smell the death and the rot coming from the plant? The police and several government agencies should be crawling all over this place. What is going on? I'll tell you what. Government cover-up. Uncle Sam needs to protect its assets at all costs. Poppy Playtime is a horror game, not scary because of the toy monsters, but the mundane human horror, the everyday horror of humans willing to commit and enact incredible cruelty on others out of curiosity. In the name of science, in the name of progress. Mundane darkness is far more scary than a 10-foot fuzzball could ever be. After all, I was just following orders.